Okay, thank you for tuning in for the week 3 of the NFL season. We're going to be doing our predictions for all the games for week 3. As you can see here, this was my picks for last week on week 2. Went 8-8. Not really what I was hoping for, but I mean, you know, you can't. It's early in the season. It's only week 2. You really don't know who's who. There's a lot of weird fucking games last week. A lot of crazy comebacks that don't happen very often. So, you know, you just got to take it. That's the NFL for you. So without further ado, we're just going to get right into it. So starting off the week, we have a game between two division rivals going at it. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. So this one's a little tricky. You know, I really want to pick Cleveland, but, you know, the way they blew that lead to the Jets last week, it scares me a little bit, especially since they were playing at home. But on the Pittsburgh side of it, they have a great defense. You know, same with Cleveland, but they just could not put up points on the board last week against New England. You know, you can say that's Trubisky, or you can say that maybe that's just offensive problems that they're having, but they had trouble doing it. And yeah, New England has a good defense, but, you know, looking at this game, it's kind of tough. I really don't, you know, I wouldn't want to put any money on this game, but if I'm going to pick, I'm going to go with the Browns just because I think they're going to be able to put up a little bit more points compared to Pittsburgh. I'm not a big believer in Pittsburgh. They still have a lot of injuries, so for this game, I'm going to go with the Browns. Next game, another two division rivals going at it. It's the Saints at the Panthers. So this is interesting. You know, Carolina is a team that so far is probably one of the most disappointing teams. You know, they had a lot of expectations. You know, with Baker joining them, you know, you thought maybe they'd make a good running for the division, make a good fight. But I know it's early in the season, but still, they're pretty disappointing. And New Orleans, you know, they fought hard last week, but Jameis Winston did Jameis Winston things and started throwing interceptions again. The Saints, I really like their defense. You know, they were giving Tom Brady fits last week like they always do. So, you know, that's what is making this game kind of tough for me. But if I have to choose, I think I'm going to go with my gut, and I am actually going to go with the Saints on this one just because I like their defense a little bit more. And Baker, I'm not 100% on. You know, it's just I don't trust him. He hasn't done anything to gain my trust, so that is who I am going to go with for this one. So next game we have is the Houston Texans at the Chicago Bears. So this is a little interesting as well. Both teams, I think, have actually started out pretty decently. I know Houston hasn't won, but they've fought in a lot of their games. You know, they pushed Denver to their max last week, and that game was really a lot closer than it really should have been. You know, Denver had a lot of expectations going into the season, and maybe it's just growing pains, you know, Russ on a new team, but Houston was in that game right up until the end. And the Bears, you know, what can you say? You know, they were going against the Packers at Lambeau. That's a tough environment, especially for a young team with a young quarterback like Fields. But I do expect the Bears to bounce back, and I'm going to pick the Bears on this one just because, you know, what I saw in Week 1, I'm still impressed by it. And I just think that Chicago's going to be able to do it at home. But Houston, you know, that's a team that they're going to fight, and they're going to be in it right until the end. But I am going to go with the Bears for this game. Next game we have is Kansas City at the Indianapolis Colts. This one I don't really need to talk about too much. The Chiefs are definitely probably one of the best teams for sure right now, and they haven't lost yet. I know it's still early, but I'm going to be saying that a lot in this video. And the Colts, you know, after what happened last week to Jacksonville, I'm having a lot of trouble believing in this team. I've lost a lot of faith in this team, and even with Matty Ice, you know, we heard a lot of problems coming from that team last year, and we all thought it was Carson, and, you know, Matty Ice could fix the problem. Like I said, I know it's still early, but it doesn't look like this team is figuring it out yet. So Kansas City firing on all cylinders. I'm going to go with Kansas City on this one. Not going to really go into it too much. In this game right here, this next one, two division opponents going at it, both undefeated, very interesting game. So Miami, was left for dead last week, and they just came storming back. Tua 6 touchdowns, going crazy. 4 of them in the fourth quarter. I think that really woke people up and said, all right, Miami is serious this season, and they're going to make a running for that wild card. I really don't think they can take the division, but they're good. They're stacked on the offensive side of it. But Buffalo, 2 games in so far. I know it's only week 2, but this team looks like it's like they're levels ahead of everybody. Like it's Buffalo and everyone else beneath them. Even, what they did to the Rams in the first game of the season on the defending champs' home turf, and then what they just did to Tennessee, Buffalo looks pissed off, and they look like they're on a mission. And I think this will be a good, entertaining game, but I'm still going to go with the Bills on this one. One thing to look out for this game, though, it is in Miami. It's going to be hot. And, believe it or not, that is an advantage. Miami's used to playing down there. I believe it's going to be like high 80s or low 90s temperature-wise for the game. That could definitely play a factor, but still going to go with the Bills on this one in what will be a very entertaining game, I believe. Next game, 2 division opponents going at it again. So we have the Lions at the Minnesota Vikings. So this is interesting. Minnesota looking really good week 1. Week 2, you see Kirk Cousins doing Kirk Cousins things again. Throwing a lot of interceptions. We're going against a tough opponent, but nonetheless, Kirk Cousins, this is why I don't trust him, and I don't care about all the stats that they show. Like this is what Kirk Cousins does. This is exactly what Kirk Cousins does. So I'm not going to be the one who says he's elite, and I'm not going to follow that because I don't believe he is elite. This might just be my, Lion side showing, but what they showed me last week and even in week 1, I really am believing in this team. Like I said, it might be a little bias on this, but this team is showing a lot of fight, and I'm really liking what we can do on the offensive side of the ball. We can put up points. Dan Campbell has got this team believing, and I'm loving it. I'm loving every minute of it. But for this game, I might be going with my heart on this one, but I'm going to go with the Lions. I think that they have a tougher team, and it doesn't matter what Minnesota is going to throw at Detroit. Detroit will keep bouncing back, and they will keep fighting because that's just who they are. They're starting to form that identity. Like I said, they're believing in their coach. Jared Goff, as much of a meme quarterback as he is, he's doing pretty damn well so far in only 2 games. So he's got plenty of weapons. DeAndre Swift's having a great year so far. For this game, I am going to go with the Lions. Next game, we have Baltimore at the New England Patriots. So this will be New England's home opener. They've had to play 2 games on the road. But I think Baltimore, after last week, has a bad taste in their mouth. I think, they were in control for most of that game till the Dolphins, avalanche of offense and scoring just happened. And I think they're going to respond pretty well here. I like their defense, and, nobody really has an answer for Lamar. And as much as I like New England and their defense, I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up offensively against Baltimore. They just really don't have enough on the offensive side of the ball. So with that, I am going to actually go with the Ravens for this game. Another game right here between the Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Jets. For this one, I do expect the Bengals to bounce back. I know they've started out 0-2 and it's been rough, but first game they had to go against TJ Watt, and then the second game they had to go against Michael Parsons. And they were in both of those games right until the end, and you could look at a couple plays and they could be 2-0. So I do expect the Bengals to bounce back. And I do got to give credit to the Jets. They fought back last week too, a lot harder than I thought they would. And honestly, I wrote them off, but Flacco did Flacco things and they came back and fought. So shout out to the New York Jets. But still, regardless, I'm going to go with the Bengals for this one. I do expect Joey Burrow to play a better game. Next game, we have the Raiders at the Titans. So this one's interesting. Talk about one of the most disappointing teams so far to start the season, the Vegas Raiders. It's just both of these teams really have been disappointing. Tennessee was the 1 seed last year, and Las Vegas having a great offseason that they did. Both of them are 0-2, so one of them is going to get a win here. And Vegas really disappointed me last week with that blown lead. I know it was a weird week, but you got to close that game out. And this is why you brought Devontae Adams here. You got the offense, but you just got to close out these games. And I think they're going to close it out this time. Tennessee, like I said, I don't believe in this team anymore. I really don't think Ryan Tannehill's that guy. I mean, even on Monday Night Football, I know they were going against the Bills, but damn, they got their ass beat. And that was an ass whooping. That's all I got to say about that. So I do expect the Raiders to win this game, but they're in a tough division, and I think that this is a must-win for them. Like, they have to win this game. Otherwise, these alarms are going to really start to be going off if they're not off already. So I do expect the Raiders to bounce back and win this game. I'm going with the Raiders. Next game, two division opponents going at it. We got the Eagles at the Commanders. Eagles, 2 weeks in, have looked amazing. Their offense, nobody has an answer for it. I know they've only played the two teams in the NFC North, the Lions and the Vikings, but this team looks legit. And I think they have a legit shot at taking that 1 seed in the NFC. And Washington, they sucked with Detroit last week. Even though Detroit started out 22 up on them, they came back and made an interesting game. But I just think Philly's the better team here. I think they've got more weapons. And I'm going to go with the Eagles on this one just because I do think they're the better team. Next game, we have the Jaguars at the Chargers. So at the making of this video, I still don't know if Herbert's playing or not. I'm going to assume he is. And it is in LA. On the Jacksonville side of it, Trevor Lawrence and what they did to the Colts last week, the Jaguars really impressed me. And I think they're going to really be in the running for their division. I think that division is up for the taking. With the Colts starting as bad as they have, the Texans really, they're kind of still in a rebuild. And the Titans really not being in that, I don't believe in them anymore. I've said that a couple times already. But Jacksonville, they're up there to take that division. Trevor Lawrence, I think this will be a good test for him, but I am going to go with the Chargers on this one. That's with me thinking that Herbert is going to be playing for this game, even though he got pretty messed up against the Chiefs last week. I am going to go with the Chargers on this one just because I think they have a better team. Even, if he's not playing, I still think I'm going to go with them, but it would be a lot closer. But I'm just going to go out on a limb, say Herbert's playing, and I'm going to go with the Chargers for this one. Next game we got here is two division opponents again. We have the defending champion Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. So if you would have asked me last week, this would have been a no-brainer. But, what the Cardinals did last week and just fought back and didn't give up against the Raiders. And, Kyler Murray, what he did last week, just whatever he could do with his legs, running all over that team. And the clutch gene, he has it. I think that they're going to really give the Rams a lot of trouble in this game. I really do. And the Rams, they have an offensive line issue. They almost choked that game last week. And I really do think that the Rams have serious problems that they need to address. So for this game, I'm actually going to go with the Cardinals on this one. First time I'm picking them this year. And I do expect them to win this game. I'm not going to be surprised if the Rams do win, but I'm gonna pick Arizona to win this game just because I think that the Rams have some serious personnel issues that they need to address. So Cardinals for this game. Next game we have the Falcons at the Seahawks. So I said I was all aboard the Geno train last week, and I'm no longer aboard on it. I think Seattle just had that really good game. They had the storyline where they had to beat Russ in week 1, and that's probably why they had all that hype. But I do believe that they're not going to win this game. I think that Atlanta actually has a lot of fight. They've been in both the games that they were in. This is probably one of the least watchable games of the week, but I do expect Atlanta to win just because they've got fight in them and they've been in both their games. And even last week, they almost beat the Rams. They came back and made it interesting. So I'm going to go with the Falcons on this one. Game of the week right here. So we have the Packers at the Buccaneers. A-Rod versus TB12. It's going to be really interesting. Obviously, Mike Evans being suspended is going to play a big factor. Julio Jones, I believe, isn't going to be playing. Chris Godwin, I don't think, is going to be playing. So Brady is not going to have a lot of targets to throw to. Probably going to be like Scotty Miller again. And I heard they just signed Cole Beasley. So they're going to have to rely on their running game a lot. And those receivers that I just mentioned. This is in Tampa Bay. And on the Packers side of it, they played excellent last week against the Bears at home. A typical good bounce back for the Packers after a rough week 1, just like last year. So this one's actually kind of tougher for me to pick, but I am going to go with the Buccaneers on this one just because their defense right now, I believe it's the best in the league, if not one of the best in the league. So I think that their defense is going to keep it interesting. I think this will be a low-scoring game. Both of these defenses are pretty damn good. But I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just because they are at home. They got that defense that really likes to disrupt Rodgers. And I think they'll be able to pull it off. It's just going to be a low-scoring game. So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers for this one. Sunday Night Football. So we have the 49ers at the Broncos. So it's interesting. Both teams 1-1. And Denver had a lot of high expectations going into the season. Again, for the millionth time, it's early. We're only 2 weeks in, but this will be a good serious test for them, I believe. So they're going to have that home field advantage, and they are going to be, they're going to have that altitude that they're used to. But they're going against a hell of a good team. And this is the 49ers team who just lost Trey Lance last week. And they have Jimmy G running the ship now. He's the captain, and they love Jimmy G. This team loves him, and they believe in him. And I really do think they're better with Jimmy G. I know Trey Lance hasn't really gotten to prove himself yet, but I believe the 49ers are better with him. Maybe not in the long term, but right now they're better with Jimmy G. And I think this is going to be really the game where Jimmy G shows why he's the number one. He's not going to do anything crazy, but he's going to be the one controlling the game, doing what he needs to do. And I'm going to actually go with the 49ers on this one. They've always given Russ trouble when he was in Seattle, always given him trouble. And Denver has not impressed me so far this year. Obviously losing the first game against Seattle, and then last week really should have won that game handedly, I believe. And they didn't. Like I said, Houston was sticking with them right into the end. Although Denver is at home and they've got the altitude, I'm going to go with the 49ers on this one. I think they have the better team, and I think they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. Denver, I got to see a little bit more from them. I've lost a lot of, faith in this team after what I've seen for 2 weeks. But, it's still really early. So for this game, I am going to go with the 49ers. And Monday Night Football to finish out the week, we have two division rivals going at it again. We have the Dallas Cowboys at the Giants. So the Giants, don't hold your breath, but they're 2-0. They are 2-0. And the Cowboys, I wrote them off when Dak went down, and they handled it pretty well last week against Cincinnati. Cooper Rush held his own, and this team looked pretty damn good last week. They did what they needed to do, and they won. And that's, at the end of the day, what really matters is if you win the game. So this game actually had a little more trouble thinking about who I was going to pick for this one. But I think I'm going to go with Dallas just because I think this will be the real first good test for the Giants. I think that Michael Parsons is really going to make his presence known in this game. Going to rattle Daniel Jones. And I think that they're going to be able to stop the run game and make Saquon Barkley have a pretty tough game. And Cooper Rush, I think he can do enough to win the game. He's not going to be the reason you win the game, but he can do enough. He can do his job. And because of that, I'm going to go with the Cowboys on this one just because I believe in their defense. And Micah Parsons, he is legit. And I think he's going to give Daniel Jones a hell of a time. And it's going to be hard for them. I'm going to go with the Cowboys for this one. So, those are my picks for this week of the NFL season. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. And let me know in the comments who you guys got for all these games. And we will see you next week.